Where's the shared chat gone? That's a good question. Where is the shared chat? Right. Hello and welcome to my stream. Today we are going to be moving on to the next stage of the MLO that I started building a few weeks ago. I've got loads of other projects on at the same time, so I can't always focus on this one. Today we're going to work on particularly texturing of the MLO for GTA's private servers on FiveM. It's going to be the same project that I did before, although it will be a little bit further on than when the previous stream that I did. So now I've divided it in rooms and I've added several rooms to it and put the door frames in, the window frames in, and all that sort of detailing to the overall structure of the interior shell. So I'm going to begin to texture it, and you'll sort of see how I UV unwrap it as best as possible in the simplest format. We can do it, and it can be done in a more complex format, but I'm going to teach it in a more simple format so you can understand it, rather than combining multiple textures into one map, let's say, which is something you can do, and it reduces the size of the file, the YTD file, which is basically a library of textures that the game will draw from. And obviously the more you've got in it, the bigger it is in size, the more space it takes up. So condensing them into smaller multi-mapped textures really help with problems such as having a larger YTD maps. But anyway, I'm going to open up the project. So here it is as it is now. Obviously before, none of these rooms are in, it was just all solid. I've now obviously broken into rooms. I will explain what each of the rooms are. Not that you need to know particularly, because it don't really matter, but I have done it. Essentially, this is like an office, this one's like another office, that one could be an office, this one could be like a boardroom style, this one could be like a staff room, that one could be, I don't know, a toilet or a server room, again a toilet or a server room, or gender specific, whatever. And then here you got the waiting room area, reception maybe, and then just a corridor, two-step reception. We've got a door. These are all glass windows, but that's the entrance. These are big windows. I haven't closed the windows in yet, but just ease of being able to see into the building, really, without needing to hide the different surfaces. Now, speaking about optimization, things like this, there is problems here that I haven't addressed yet. Well, this edge here doesn't need to be here, so I can reduce the number of surfaces that need rendering by 1 already, reducing the strain on the GPU by like millionth of a millionth, mega millionth of a second, probably. Let's be fair, because that's minute. But if you had loads of like excessive amounts of surfaces to render, then it cause more strain, which is the reason you tend to optimize with as fewer edges and triangles and quads as possible. So, because I've just noticed this whilst I'm here, I am going to slowly remove that one now, because it doesn't need to be there, so we can go. Now, this unfortunately is very messy, and there's honestly not a great deal I can do about it. Other than what you could do is insert like another, how shall I put this, like another border, let's say, around. And by inserting it, I could then essentially reduce the number of these down a little bit, so they're more bigger rather than not as tight together in surfaces, which could help. But I'm not going to do it in this instance. It's quite frank, it's overkill for the purpose of this video. But essentially I could like put a border around the inside, which would mean I wouldn't have as bigger surfaces to render. In. Let me just fix that one. I don't think it left any vectors. No, it hasn't. Good. This is by no means going to be perfect, but it'll be reasonable. Right. So one tool you need, particularly for FiveM, is this Solomon's tool. If you need a link to it, just drop me a comment on here. Alternatively, I will also leave a note on where to get this plugin on YouTube in the description. However, if I don't remember, then oh no, just drop me a reminder in the chat. It's a polite reminder. Why is my undo not working? There we go. Right. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to select everything. And then I'm going to hit U. Now this will this can automatically unwrap it. And it will probably do an absolutely terrible job of it. But I don't know for a fact. But I will go with automatic. I wouldn't recommend you use automatic. I would recommend that you basically select the faces that you want to texture with, said texture, whatever that texture may be, and then click U and unwrap them sort of individually. But I've just unwrapped the entire thing, and it's probably going to look horrible. We'll find out in a moment. So right now we need to create a texture. Now, if you're familiar with Blender, you probably already know how to make texture materials. To a point, throw it out the window. Completely disregard it because it's useless. You want to use the default shaders that they put in this program plugin. Otherwise, the game will be typical GTA 5M. That's the best way of putting it. It just won't work because welcome to GTA. It's good at that. So you want to search for normal and then create the material. You'll notice immediately the first material will instantly apply to everything. Now here's a key bit of tip here for you. If you've got some really intricate like areas on the model that you think will be more difficult to texture, then make your life easier and set whatever that difficult material is as your first texture. That way you just need to texture everything else around it way easier, providing your UV is unwrapped correctly. Now we'll know in a moment how good that smart UV is. So I've obviously got that one selected, the normal. We are going to rename it, and always use a name that is like identifies maybe you in some way, and then follow it up by you know what it is, or what color it is, or what texture type it is, or whatever. This one I'm just going to put wood baseboard. I don't know, that'll do. Okay. And the reason why is, if we just called it baseboard, there's a very high chance that FiveM already has a texture called baseboard, and then what you'll have is a conflict between the two textures, and it'll start to conflict and cause issues in game, or it could start to, not necessarily all the time. So to prevent that conflict, that's how you can do it. Make sure you name them like something that you know's probably got next to zero chance of finding a file or texture the same. Right. So now we're gonna work on the shader itself. But the shader has been pre-built. So this is what I mean by that you don't need to worry about building it, because it's already built for you. So why make your own shaders? For one, and for two is it generally doesn't like to accept shaders that you've made yourself, because they're annoying like that. So I have already created several like prefabs, let's say. In this particular instance, I am going to use this texture here. That's your normal. Your normals. Sorry, not your normal. That one's your normal, I think. Yeah, that was the normal. This one's your normal, which will be always marked with an N. You have to use DDS format. If you don't know how to save in DDS, there's a free program if you don't have something like Photoshop, called paint.net, where you can put your textures into there, and then you can save them as DDS in there. And there's a particular save format. If you need help on how to do that, again, drop me a comment. I can tell you the formats and what they're used for pretty easily. The normal is what gives you your texture depth, let's say. Gives it a bit more depth, so it looks a bit more 3D, artificially 3D though, rather than actual 3D. So that's why you would use a normal. And every texture should have a normal on it. So here, as you can see, it create the dark bits will be the so if we look at wood, if it's dark, it means somebody's gone along and keyed it and scratched it or whatever. If it's light, it's more raised and it's more in your face. That's the best way of putting it. Simplest terms. This texture here has got two different textures on it. So there's two actual wood grains. Not you can see it in there, but there is. And then you got the diffuse sample, which is basically the base colour. As you can see, base colour. That's literally what colour it is. Simple as. Boom. Now you'll notice in that file, it does not have a letter because it doesn't need one. So there's several different types of, let's say, suffixes. N being normal, and then you've got, remember these, you've got, there's another one that's got D, P, and somewhere else. I can't remember off the top of my head. I can have, I'll be able to figure it in a minute. Be in here. The D's displacement. Then you got opacity. It's DPO, I think. And then there's another one too, but I can't remember what the other one is. If it's in front of me, it's stupid, it's silly. If it's right in front of me and I've got an example, I'll be able to tell you what it is, but because I'm trying to remember it, I can't remember it. But there is different like prefixes. If you get stuck on them, I can answer it. Just give me the whatever the suffix is and I'll be able to answer it. It's just because I'm trying to come up with it out of my head right now and I can't bloody remember. And they have different purposes essentially. So the D would stand for the displacement. Then, for example, you could have R, which is roughness. There's several ones. There's probably DRP. I can't remember. But anyway, they serve for different parts. So that's the reason you'll have a suffix on the end. I digress. I've gone on too long for that. Right. So I've done that. And as you can see, I've smart UV'd it. Yeah? Just look at that. Smart UV. It works, doesn't it? Nope. It really doesn't. So that's the reason why, generally speaking, you don't want to use smart UV because it is terrible. It's rubbish. So what I'm going to do is I am going to create another texture right now in here. And I'm going to name this AFP underscore wood floor. When I spell floor right. And then again, I'm going to go into this and I'm going to select. I'm going to set the floor. I wish it would remember this. It's annoying now. I keep needing to. And we'll go with that one. What do I go with that one? Ah, we'll go with that one. Again, make sure you've got the normal. That was the one with. And now I'm going to change things up a little bit because I want to manually UV unwrap the project. So again, I'm hitting U And then I'm going to go cube project as an idea for it and see how that works. The other thing you need to check is that there says UV map 0. And then in this one, you're going to have to do the same. Now, there's your UV map. That's the map it'll take from, and that's the one you need to use. If you don't use it, it'll cause problems. Like that, like I said, it causes problems. So that's the smart UV unwrap. And there you saw two different problems there. So here you can see how terrible it is at UV smart unwrapping. And you also saw the problem between not having the correct UV map selected. So that's why it's important to make sure you've got the right UV map selected. And that you use a more specialized UV unwrap. Otherwise it looks messy. I've already done that one, but right. So when I say UV unwrap, there's UV. The UV essentially it unmaps all the surfaces in your object, whatever the object is, be it a football, be it a building, be it a Christmas tree, whatever it is, it'll unwrap it. And then you paint your textures on said unwrap. So if I now draw a line through the middle of that, you can see it's applied on the object. So that's how you literally paint a texture on, which is handy later, because then I could show you how to put signs on and stuff like that, and then I'll put it in for you. That's one way of doing it anyway. There is other things you can do, but if you put a sign on this one, it would affect the texture, which would mean you wouldn't essentially be able to use it anywhere else. So you wouldn't really want to do it, but you can. Right, so I'm going to go UV. And now I'm going to select all of it, because we don't like the scale of that. So I'm going to scale it up by clicking S to make it a little bit more denser, let's say. Right, I need to check the normals because I think some of them are facing the wrong way. If I can never remember where it is in here. And where are you? There you are. Yeah, I knew it. Right. So this is another problem you'll come across. Your normal faces. So this is the direction your face, your texture loads in the game. So if we was in game now, and this was in FiveM, you walk into this building, this bit would be absolutely invisible. You'd suddenly see straight through it. It wouldn't be there. It wouldn't exist because it's red. So when you ever walk in, if you're ever in a game, whatever the game is, it don't matter if it's FiveM, it don't matter what game it is, if the normal is the wrong way, you'll be able to look straight through the object, whatever that object is. Now, this is quite handy in certain areas like Windows, particularly in MLOs. If your building doesn't really have, let's say, windows on the exterior, your building would look a little odd if it doesn't have windows, but you could like artificially create a window without actually altering the exterior model. So the exterior model in our particular case, have I still got it in here? Is this one here. Let me just bring it back. I think that's it. So that's the exterior model in this particular case. So that's your in-game model that GTA's got near Echo Plaza. No, not Echo Plaza, that's the other one. This one is... Where is this one? It's near Roxwood Shopping Centre. Somewhere in that general area. I can't remember now. So, obviously here, there is no windows. But, because this texture faces towards us, if we was to artificially create a window in this shell, you would be able to look through it and look through the building, the exterior building too, because the faces are the wrong way. So essentially you wouldn't actually notice in game that there's actually another wall between you and the exterior. That said, if you're keen on detail, then you would notice, because you can drive down the back of this building, you're like, well, why is there windows on the inside but there's no windows there? I'd notice, well, that's just me. Some people might not care. Let me get rid of that though. So again, to bring the surfaces up and make sure they are the right way, you can go into this option here, viewport, and you can click face orientation. And now if you know there's loads of them facing the wrong way, which I clearly do, just by looking at that, you can just shift click all the ones that are facing the wrong way. Which, believe me, there is plenty of them. Oh. Right, I'm going to have to do these windows, but I'll do these later, because they're all facing the wrong way too. Now all these you want facing with the red on the outside, because this is the interior, not the exterior. So we need to flip them. The opposite way. I think I've got them all. Apart from these here. But they're another problem there. They need fixing in a slightly different way. And press Alt and N. You will quite often find yourself accidentally pressing Control and N, which is exactly what I've just done, until you really get familiar with this program. And simply just flip them. So like I said, you want red on the outside. And just keep going until you've got all the surfaces facing the right way. there is some scenarios where you want like door frames and windows and stuff. You will have them the opposite way round. Because the door frames, obviously, they reflect both inside and outside the building, so you will have them like I've got them here, because you want to be able to see them. So think about that when you're sorting them out. If you're ever in an area where you want to get closer so you can see it, just select it and then press full stop on your numpad. If you don't have a numpad, then get a better keyboard. That's my only suggestion, really, in that regard. Ooh, there we go. So here, you've ever been in a game where you've seen a gaps in the UV? This is why. So right here, there is actually a gap, which means that fascia there is not connected to that fascia, which means there's a hole right there in that surface. As you can see, there's a hole. Now in this particular instance, I probably can straight up fix this by grabbing that vector point there and grabbing that vector and then just merging them. It may fix it, or it may just really badly break it. I could probably have gone there as well, in all fairness, but again, Alt flip. You'll notice that every time I do it, they're showing up on this texture here. So that's going to be a window eventually, which is the reason it's got a center line. Where's my skirting board? Oh, I didn't put my skirting on that one. Okay, fine. Oh, me forgetting to press shift. Now, and the thing with me making these little mistakes is these are the little mistakes that you'll do too. Like, there's no way you won't. Unless you're like extensively experienced with this software, you will make mistakes like forgetting to press shift to select multiple surfaces. Now, by me making these mistakes, it means I can highlight them to you, and then you'll be more like, oh, it's because I'm doing this, and know how to fix the problem. So again, to select multiple surfaces, press an Alt Shift, and left click on them, and then change the surface fascia's direction, Alt and N, and then rinse and repeat until you've got all the interiors facing inwards, so you have no transparent areas in your model. So I put a bit more time in this bit of flooring here, which is the reason it looks way better than this here. So it's all about scaling your UV to make it look like it's better suited. You can also decide what direction you want that. With that being the door, I think personally it would be better going that away rather than that away. So I think I will select all these again. Ow, I just broke myself in the eye. Oh, that hurt. Oh. So I will select all these again. And then press R to rotate. But if you're going to rotate, make sure you have got all the points selected when you do it, because if not, it can cause problems. The other thing you could consider is you could slice it here, join that vector to that vector. And that way you could essentially have all these floorboards going that way, and then these ones going that way, and then they'll join together sort of in the middle. But again, that's personal preference and attention to what you want to achieve. Me personally, I would probably do it that way I've just said, but I'm not going to do it that way because of the time and the duration it will take. To do that. Right, so I'm going to sort out all the floors as fast as possible here for you. S to scale. Now my texture that I've used here is not the best because you've got clear, obvious seams. Well, that's because I've just quickly chucked it together. You don't really want them obvious seams. So try and make sure that all the edges are the same or very, very similar to avoid having obvious lines in your texturing. Like you can see here. So, but that's my floors. Pretty much done in all the rooms. Now let's go for adding the ceilings. So again, we're going to have to add another texture. So we will select all So you've got all the UVs there. And we're going to go into materials. We're going to create another material. And then we're going to, in this particular case, KFP underscore, and then we're going to go with, do I do walls or ceiling? I might go with ceiling, I think. Yeah, we'll go with ceiling. So we'll go with ceiling right now. So we are going to select, for this particular instance, all the ceilings. Try and do it in one. Likelihood of it being successful is low, because scaling could be an issue depending on the room. So I now need to go and assign the ceiling texture to all of the ceilings. And I'm going to go into shader, and I'm going to select my ceiling normal, which is that one. Then my ceiling base texture, which actually gives it its colour, is that one. As you can see, it's enormous. Actually, here would be a good example of maybe showing you how the normals affect the texture. So if I was to change that to, let's say, this normal, you can visually see how the normals affect the look of the ceiling. I have to get a better angle for you, but I'm not doing it. Let me put back in edit mode and select. So now you can more accurately see how it provides depth to your texture. Okay. So I'm going to press tab and get myself into edit mode and select this part of the room first. In fact, no, I'll do this one because this one's going to be the easiest. And with it selected, I'm going to go into UV. And I'm going to make sure I've selected them all in there. And then I'm going to press S and scale it to roughly the size that you want it to be. And I'm going to press G and grab it to move it a little bit. Now, there is other things we can do here, but for this video I'm not going to show you how to do it, but essentially we can cut some of these squares out, place lighting, but then we have to go through the entire principle of applying lighting, how it works, how to not overdo it, because lighting, virtual lighting, has a massive, humongous effect on performance. Which is the reason if you go into a room that's got loads of lights, you'll notice your FPS will drop massively. And that's because your computer has to calculate where it's lighting up, where all the shadows are. I'm demonstrating with my hands, like you can see my hands. But anyway, it has to calculate everything. So how the light reflects, where a shadow will be cast because of the lights getting blocked, how the colour would change depending on the heat temperature of the light. So if it's a more natural light to if it's candle light, the colours in the room would obviously change, just like in real life. Sunset, colours outside will look different to sunrise. So the game has to calculate that. And whilst it's doing that, your FPS will drop. Because it's constantly boof, 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 like a heartbeat every second, calculating where the shadows are. And it's actually faster than a heartbeat. So that's the thing to consider. So I'm not going to go into lighting at this stage because it's very complex to understand how it affects performance anyway. So I'm going to select them ones now, and now I'm going to scale these to make it look more similar. I'm doing it by eye here, but that should be about the same, I think. Yeah, thereabouts. And then I'm going to G it and grab it just to... that. Now these I can probably do together because they're all in roughly the same place. So we'll scale these all together and then hopefully we can square this away a bit quicker. Bit of a pun there. I'm dealing with square tiles and I'm squaring it away. Oh, there we go. Now sad. Let's make it roughly so it's the same both ways, both sides then. Right, so as you can see, the normals make a huge difference with how these tiles look. Can you get better tiles like texturing? I 100,000% can get better tile texturing, but these are just simple sample textures that I'm utilizing for the purpose of making this particular model. That's the reason I'm using it. Right. So I'm now going to select all again and I'm going to create yet another texture and we're going to call this one KFP underscore wall. And then I'm going to call this underscore test. I can't remember what they call it in the. I'll just call it. DLVR. That'll do. I know what that means, but you don't need to worry about it. It's fine. I've called it that because I know when I go in to test this, I know for a fact I've got another texture called KFP wall, so it would clash. So that's the reason I put that on the end, because I know if I didn't, it'd clash. So I've got to do that for this particular scenario. And I did not assign the floor. So again, here's another mistake when creating your textures. Make sure you actually assign them. Now, I am just assigning very specific floors right now, but you will have to duplicate a lot of these later. But right now it doesn't matter. But I'll talk you through the reason why you need to duplicate them later on. But essentially, it's because each one of these rooms literally are rooms. That sounds silly, I know, but it will make sense later that in your MLOs, if you've ever gone through from one doorway into another doorway, you'll notice everything loads in. And that's because this building will be divided into several little rooms. And because of that, you have to tell the textures what room it belongs to. But that will come in later on when you go into making collisions. For the time being, it doesn't necessarily matter. The other important factor here is when you're making these textures, make sure you embed. Oh, I've not done them yet. Make sure you embed the texture. So if you don't embed it, then, well, you can guess there's no texture. So you have to embed them. Right, let's get to this wall now. Go back to shader. I'm going to go back to SE. And then we're going to go to wall. And we're going to go, which one did I just select? I don't know. I think I selected that one. Yeah, I did. I wish you could remember. That'd be really useful. Nope. Let's begin the process of sorting these walls out now. Oh, no. I'm going to mass do these in as quick a format as I can. There's a 1000% chance there's going to be issues with these walls. I will then guide you through the process of fixing it, which will be the same process as earlier, just randomly UV wrap whichever ones need fixing, essentially. That's the reason why I didn't put windows in yet. So I can click through. Oh, that needs fixing there. because these are walls are just the walls they are, I can probably just straight up scale them all up and not need to really hugely worry about re-UV mapping them. Though these interior walls will definitely need re-UV mapping. Largely because I need to edit it down in this corner here. So, as you can remember, you might remember from my previous stream about triangles and quads. So, your GPU can only render in quads or triangles. It will automatically dissect it if it isn't, and it will attempt to render it, but it could potentially do an absolutely horrifying job. Which is the reason I'm going to have to turn this into a quad by joining the two vectors together. Now, I best check the upper one too, make sure I've done that one. I have. We're looking all right, I think. Let me go back to faces. So there is a facial problem there. Oh no, it's not. It's just a very slim margin on that border. That could cause a problem in game, but we'll figure that one out later. If it does. I am going to have to UV wrap this because of me changing some of it. Yeah, that's looking better already. Only moderately better, but you can see the difference if you got a keen eye to the detail. If you haven't, then you haven't seen the difference, so be it. Oh, don't want that one. So I am going to now scale this up a little bit. But not that much. The important thing to note when you are scaling is if I say click that there and then press S to scale there, it will not scale that. It will scale that. So make sure you click on the window that you wish to scale. Otherwise, if you don't and you scale, oh, that needs dividing too. Good spot. If you click S on the wrong window, you can scale the wrong thing. You don't want to do that. Rest assured, you will do it. Even though you don't want to do it, you will do it. There's no ifs, ands and buts. It will happen and it will annoy you. But luckily, there's a thing called undo. But it will happen. And then you kick yourself afterwards. Yeah, like, damn it. But it does happen. Let's grab that, put it in the middle, scale it up a little bit. Again, grab that one. Put it in the middle by pressing G. And then scale it up. Oh, same again. Put it in the middle, scale it up. This one, I'm probably going to have to do it in segments. So I will select, oh, that part there. I'm not going to select that. Right. So I'm going to manually UV wrap this particular component because of the size of it, the sheer size of it. It's not going to fit on this thing otherwise. That one you shouldn't notice, even if it does or doesn't. So I'll leave that as it is. So I'm manually unwrapping some of the edge surfaces, which is the reason it's suddenly scaling to fit the box perfectly, or near as it can. And the rotation for this particular doesn't really matter because it's a very vanilla sort of texture, so it doesn't really matter about the direction of the rotation of the texture, because in theory you shouldn't see it anyway. You shouldn't notice a difference. So the other thing I've left here to show you how little finer bits of detail can really make a difference is if I look here in your MLO in the building. In fact, I'll use that as an example. That there is better. That is a very solidly straight, like too perfect edge. Now, there's several things you can do to sort of counteract that, but here's one of the examples. Obviously, I've not UV mapped it yet, so it's going to look spud, but I put a massive skirting board in, which will then break that up a little bit. So I'm going to UV unwrap, UV all this for us so we can see how that will affect and break up the edges a little bit. I'm not sure why it's done it quite like that, but okay. Why is it gone like that? Why is that one? That's random. Isn't that one that's done that? Nope. That one? Nope. That one? Okay, I don't know. I don't know why that one did that. No idea. There we go. baseboard. So I need to run the shader for that, because I know I have uploaded the wrong texture. I need this one. And I also need that one. And that's got two textures in it, so there's the difference with that one. It's got two. I'm going to grab it, I'm going to put it there, I'm going to scale it up. Now this one won't matter if it goes outside the box. Anyway, it doesn't matter because the edges are fairly uniform. But as you can see, if I select a vector in that corner, or that edge there, I'm trying to get you in that corner. Zoom out. You can already sort of see that breaks the roughness. Oh, I do need to rotate it though. It's got a slight different angle. I do need to rotate it a little bit. So I will do that now. You can barely tell there, but it is. You can just see it at that end. It's very minimal, but it's definitely there. Well, it's because the floor's actually not straight. Yeah, it's got to be because it's done it there too. So that floor can't be level. I don't like that floor anyway, you know, fairness. So I'm going to select this floor here and change it because I don't actually like it. Go with that one. This is what I mean. Oh, by texture tiling. But you can clearly see that's a tile. But like I said, once you've got furniture in and stuff like that, it shouldn't be as obvious. There is techniques in certain programs you can use to break it, break that tiling effect up. The worst scenario for things like textured tiling is actually landscapes. If you are in a game that has very little to no texture tiling, like breakup, you will 100% see it very, very quickly across landscape. But in a building, it's a bit more easier to hide, because you can use furniture and just buggered that one up. Let me try that again. You can break it up a lot more. But on a landscape, which I do landscapes, landscapes is probably more of my skill set at the moment, actually, in all fairness. But that's because I'm experimenting in that area at the minute. So that being said, don't be asking me any questions about making landscapes for FiveM, because I've never done it, so I don't really know enough to guide you on it. Although the principles of it I could probably guide you on fairly well, but I've never done it yet in any massive degree. This is a door frame, which is the reason I'm unwrapping it. I'm going to give all the door frames like a wood effect, because I just think now I'm going to...
Right, so you pushed her out of my bedroom by coming into my bedroom. Yes, she did. No, you didn't. Yes, she did, because you're in my bedroom. Where's the cat pit?
Now, I'm going to deliberately show you how this UV really affects the texture. So sometimes you'll see textures look stretched. and distorted. And one of the ways that happens is by something like this with a UV. So that's distorted. You can't see it very well because of where it's selected right now, but it distorts it. The other way is, you say, you grab this one here, and then I grab it, and then I go up like that. See how it's distorting it? So your UVs, getting them right is key to making your texture look reasonable. I don't worry too much about overlapping them like that. That doesn't matter, because they each deemed as individual anyway. And I am obviously distorting these, but as long as I keep the aspect roughly the same, it shouldn't have a massive effect. But personally, yourselves, I wouldn't do it. Just keep it simple. Try and get better textures than ones I've used here. I will say that. Although in game, to be fair, you probably barely notice the textures actually don't look that bad in game. I have seen them in game already on another project, let's say, which was essentially just that building there. It was just this one on its own, without this massive extension. Yeah. So I do have one with just that, which I can show you in game. But ultimately, we want to see this entire building, so I'll try and get us to the point where we can see this whole building. Now, I did see a texture facing the wrong way somewhere. Where was that? That needs re-unwrapping, because that's horrible. It's better. Where was that? Where was it? Ah, there we go.
One of you get me one of the open bag of treats downstairs, please. Open bag. Where? Play.
So it's starting to come together now. It's starting to look a bit more normal, let's say. I thought I'd done these doors, or were these ones I did? Oh, it's these ones, okay. That's these ones still need doing. We're going to go with air this time, just for a slight bit of variation. We'll overlap them. G to grab, and we're going to go here for these. Let's scale it up. Now let's do the same here. Now, but you got to think these are going to have doors in them and stuff like that, so it will break any discrepancies. And finer detail again with the skirting boards or baseboards, whatever you want to call them. And then again, you could break up the edges up here with alcoves, so it doesn't look such solid textures. But again, for the time being, what you need to know is, though, when I'm doing this, is how this looks here is 1,000 times different to how it looks in game. And I'm going to be truthful. This floor here definitely looks better in game than it does here. So again, that needs... I'm going to re-UV that. And I'm going to apply the wall texture. No, not ceiling, wall, you plonker. See that there? It's looking a bit funky for some weird reason. I don't know why. I might keep it though, to a certain extent.
Done, such a good girl. Yes, you are. But you feel better. Ooh. I gave the cat a bath pit. Makes you feel loads better.
So this ain't UV unwrapping very well. Which is annoying.
He does better.
Okay, why? Let me dissolve that edge there.
No, she'll find it. Maybe we can, What's a good girl?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that's going to cause a problem.
Kurt, she hated me.
So that was an excellent example of how if you UV unwrap wrong, you'll get weird shadows. Now those weird shadows are very minimal in this editor, or in any editor for that matter. But when you get them in game, rest assured, they will be obvious. And they will sound out like sore thumb. And it'll annoy you really badly. So that's all done for the time being. Now I need to work on a new texture, which is going to be the metal frames for all the doors. And then I'm going to call it from there. So we're going to do that. And then I will call this episode, let's say, done for the time being. And then we can come back to the next steps. I might finish up the windows off scene and stuff like that. I'll finish most of the windows. I will leave probably one window just to show you in my next stream, and then we'll go through the process of actually converting this into a working drawable and making it so it can be seen in game, and then creating the collisions and stuff like that. So we'll go from there. But before I do that, I am going to create the next texture. Which again, I'm going to have to name this funkily because I have got a texture called frame. So if you're wondering what that stands for, actually the Department for Licensing and Vehicle Registration. And that's because you can't use, I couldn't use like the British terminology DVLA. Same as you can't use NHS because it's a brand. It doesn't stop you from putting it in your game, so if you do decide to do that, that is your choice, but you do it at your own risk, your own liability. That's on you. But if you then consider even the likes of Rockstar themselves don't put brands in, you might want to rethink, well, actually, if they're not doing it, then I'm not going to do it. Or you can just balls to the wall and go, whatever, I don't care. It's your choice. But I am sticking to not doing it because I don't intend to get sued. And don't think they can't find out who you are, because they can. Might take them a while though, but they can. And annoyingly, it doesn't matter if, particularly with Rockstar, it doesn't matter if you've got permission from whoever manufactures the brand or whoever owns the brand. It don't matter whether you've got the license to use it or not, because you might have the license, but Rockstar don't. You are on their platform. That's the reason why they're hitting out on it right now, particularly with cars, because Rockstar's getting sued for using branding materials, and it's not them. Now they can scapegoat it, which they do. I'm fairly certain they can get round that by deflecting that to the user that is generating the material, whoever that may be. But again, like I said, it is your choice. He's re-wrapping. Right, okay. Now, a little bit more in depth, a little bit here, but you can help Smart Project. You can make it work better by marking seams out. So let's say this, you wanna select an edge like here. If you mark it as a seam, when it UV unwraps it, it will consider that a seam. So a bit like a cardboard box, a packet of crisps. You break that cardboard box open, you've got your flaps, top, bottom flaps. You then close it up, and you've got a seam that sticks the box together. It opens it out, and then all your textures, all the branding and all the stuff for whatever product it is on one side of that cardboard box, but on the inside it's just plain vanilla brown cardboard. That's basically what we're doing here, UV unwrapping. And you can literally pick an edge, wherever that edge may be, and you can mark that as a seam. And I'll do it for you. And it'll consider that when it's creating your texture. Alternatively, you can do like I've been doing for this particular one, is just selecting the exact fascias and unwrapping them individually. You do what's easier for you. Essentially, what works for you might not work for another. In this particular case, I am going to unwrap all the verticals separately. The horizontals. So I realise this is immensely boring to watch, but there's not a great deal I can do about that, in all fairness. I am going to stack all these on top of each other. Oops. Now, I've done it again. This is another excellent example of me getting somewhat wrong. Okay. Trying to do things quicker, but I'm really not doing it quicker at all. Oops. Again, I'm going to select all these and just compact them together. You don't have to do this, but if you imagine a texture that's got multiple textures on, what you could do is reduce the number of textures you've got in your model by applying multiple textures. So like the wood one I've got, it's got 2 types of wood on it for... Ah, it's way too big. Let me zoom that out. Way too big. Maybe reduce the size of that a little bit because it's massive. You want to get it to the scale that makes it look reasonable, but not excessively stretched. That's still not right. That's not right at all, but I'm not bothered. It'll do. And then I've obviously got to rinse, repeat, and do that for all the other frames. I might even do it for the interior frames, but I'm deciding whether to make them wood on the interior or make them metal or just white. I'm not sure, because this here, you'll have a fascia from there to there, and then another fascia from that edge there to the inner edge there, and that will become your window. And then this here, I might either paint white like this, or I might make it so it's got a wooden frame like that. I'm not entirely sure yet. I might leave that open to you guys. You guys can answer that. But for the time being, I'm not going to do it anyway. Now, I'm going to quickly cover something. I'm not bothering with the rotation of the top one because I don't care, because you're not going to see it anyway. But I'm going to quickly cover one thing. So your texture shader, you go into shader, you got your frame selected. In here, there is a setting for metallic and a setting for roughness. Now, that is also specular, but that it basically adjusts how metal looking it is. So you do want to probably put a little bit of something in there to make it a bit more metal looking. But again, that is your discretion. I personally wouldn't make it that strong though. It will highlight all your seams and stuff. But we can see this MLO starting to come together now. But at least the model of it. We can, in the next video, I will, like I said, we'll convert it to a drawable. We'll then work on the collisions, which in your collisions you'll have them all in here, and you'll see all of a sudden you'll end up with 1 billion textures instead of 1, 2, 3, 5. I think there's 5 there. Yeah, instead of 5, there's no scrolling, so you'll have essentially 4 per room, apart from the front. So the front ones will have 5. This one will have 5. That one will have 5. Whereas that one will have 4. That will be maybe 3. The floor, the roof, the ceiling, sorry, and the walls per room. So there'll be 3 for each. And then these front rooms here that's got windows in it, they'll have an extra for the frame. Some of these back ones will have extras because I've actually put skirting boards in, or baseboards, whatever you want to call them, depending where you're from. so that'll add another texture. But off screen, I'm gonna finish putting all the skating boards in. I'm gonna probably retexture it all again a little bit, because when I put the skating boards in, I reduce some of the flooring, so this will get reduced in size, so will that, because the skating boards obviously reduce the floor space a little bit. So I'd have to redo all these, but it's not bad because I might actually get a better flooring. Yeah, and then I might put I can't remember what that alcove in at the top. I don't know what an American terminology is for it, but yeah. But yeah, I'll leave it at that for the time being. You can see it's starting to look a little bit more like a building. It's not perfect, but it's coming along. So I'll finish up the texturing. I put all but a couple of windows in, so I can see the process. I can show you the process of putting windows in, and then we'll convert it to drawable, and then I'll start working on the collision, and then putting it together to actually turn it to an MLO. So yeah, thank you for putting up with me at this point and getting bored to death. It's not the most exciting thing to watch unless you're really wanting to learn how to do it. I do need to fix that one because I selected that texture by accident. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for joining me, and I will catch you on the next one. If you have any questions again, don't hesitate to drop me a comment if you want me to show you how to do something again, or maybe go in a bit more detail on how to do something again. Drop me a comment on YouTube, and I will endeavour to attempt to show you. If I don't know the answer right away, I'll find out the answer and then come back to you. You know, I don't know everything, but I do know a fair bit. I do have a degree in game design, so kind of helps. But thank you for your time, and goodbye and good night.